Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ancient Warfare Answers. I'm Murray, the assistant editor of Ancient Warfare magazine, and I'm going to be answering a question from one of our viewers slash listeners. In a minute, you can, of course, ask us a question, as you know, so you can send us a message, you can send us an email, you can back us on Patreon, www.patreon.com/Ancient Warfare Podcast. You can back us at the level of Legionary, Optio, or Centurion, and we will do our best to answer any questions you have so that you have your fix for the week of Ancient Warfare. Now, the question we've got this time round is about national weapons. Were nations named after weapons or vice versa? A notional chicken and egg question here about national weapons. Certain tribal confederations like the Franks and Saxons typically bear namesake weapons such as the Francisca and the Sax. Is the name of the weapon thought to be derived from the name of the confederation, or is the name of the confederation derived from the weapon? Right. So I'm going to say that we don't know, and then I'm going to try and give a much more definitive answer, because I think we can argue in a couple of cases what knowledge we have, but then in a couple of others, it's like, well, that's not possibly able to be known. So especially with the Francisca or the Francesca and the Sax or the Siax, we have weapons which are the weapons of a particular tribe, and obviously seem to look like the name of the tribe. So obviously the Franks used the Francisca and the Saxons used the Siax. The Francisca is, of course, an axe, generally a throwing axe, and the Siax is a single bladed knife or dagger, normally with a single blade. A single-edged blade rather than a double-edged blade. Now, in those two cases, I think that what you've got, therefore, is a weapon which was distinctive and which was something that was used mostly by members of that particular tribe. But on the one hand, we don't know. So obviously with the Saxons, you have, they're generally jumbled in with the Anglo-Saxons, meaning the Angles and the Saxons, both from an area of the Jutland Peninsula and that area of the coast of what is now Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands. But, of course, that ignores the Frisians, it ignores the Jutes, it ignores a whole bunch of other people who originally are differentiated in those invasions, and then over time, they simply become Saxons or Anglo-Saxons, but there's actually a whole bunch more subdivisions within those peoples. We don't know, for instance, if some of them were using weapons which were known as Franciscas or Siaxes. And so, in a way, you could say that these names of these weapons are not identified with tribes originally. They were other names for weapons, and more people use them, but then they get identified with an individual tribe, even though they were more widespread, possibly. So I would say that the Sax and the Francisca take hold because they are similar to the names of the tribes. And there are other weapons which do not bear any resemblance to any names of the tribes, as far as I know. So, for instance, you don't have any tribes of the Thracians called the Romphia or the Romphoi or anything like that. Now, the Romphia was, of course, a straight or slightly curved blade attached to a pole, and apparently quite vicious. And it's something that the Thracians used from at least 350 to 400 BC. We don't find anyone called that tribe. So it's a weapon that is associated with the Thracians, not named after, it's not called the Thramphire or the Threkfire or something like that. Same with the Falx, which is the distinctive curved blade used by the Dacians. And again, there's not, as far as I know, any tribe which is called the Falki. Very cool tribe name. So it's hard to know And again, one of the issues, of course, with that is that that's Latin sources, or Romphire is Greek, and Phelps is Latin. So is it another word that has simply been sort of mangled when it's been given to a Latin translation? So in those terms, you've got weapons that are associated especially with particular nationalities, for lack of a better term. So, peoples, but are not named after the people. And so in that case, I think you've got evidence to say that the Francisca and the Sacs are weapons, and it's simply coincidental that their names are similar to the tribes, because there's a lot of other weapons that are not similar to the tribe. There are also, of course, weapons that are associated with and types of warfare that are associated with particular kinds of people that have nothing to do with the people or the weapon. So Cretan archers, Balearic slingers, the Agrianian peltasts, for instance, we don't find them associated with the weapon. We find them associated with the nationality. So you find you can just say Cretans and everyone understands that it's archers, that you can just say Agrianians and everyone understands that they're light-armed peltasts. You can just say Balearics and everyone will understand that you're talking about slingers. Similarly, you can just say Numidians and everyone will understand that you're talking about light cavalry. So in that sense, you've got a people who are associated with a particular weapon or a particular style of fighting, but not the weapon itself. Then you have these other weapons that are, again, national weapons and are associated with particular peoples but aren't named after those peoples. Then, just to contradict myself, you have something like the Gladius Hispanensis, the Spanish sword, which is named after a particular kind of blade in Spain. And it, of course, then becomes almost universal throughout the Roman world. So it absolutely is named after a particular people and then spreads wider. So unhelpfully, you have examples of every one. If you want to say that, well, they're definitely named after the tribe, there it is. If you want to say the tribe's definitely named after the weapon, you can make that case for the Francisca and the Sacs. But I think that it's the other way around, that you have in those two cases weapons which are distinctive for those peoples and happen to have a name which was similar or had similar elements and sounds to the tribal name. But other weapons don't have those kinds of elements going for them at all. I hope that answers the question. Anyway, we will see you again next time on Ancient Warfare Answers. Thank you.